Hello, and welcome back to the Audience Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Hewitt from Castos. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about something that many of us have a love-hate relationship with, but is an extremely effective means of communication, and that is email. Whether we love it or hate it, and sometimes both of those happen in the same day, email is the preferred communication tool for many of us in many parts of our lives. Some recent data showed that even amongst millennials, 73% say that email is the preferred medium of communication for business, far surpassing social media, postal mail, text and SMS messaging, and surely the regular phone. So here in 2020, the question is, how can we build an effective email marketing and communication strategy for our podcast? And in this episode, we're going to walk kind of soup to nuts, everything from kind of what email marketing is, how to get it started and implemented for your podcast, and then how to effectively kind of fine-tune that over time. So let's dive in. Okay, so I think first it's great to kind of lay the groundwork with some definitions of what is email marketing and what is the goal of using email alongside our podcast. You might be saying, Craig, I thought this was a podcast. Why are we talking about email? I want to podcast and talk and have my listeners consume my content while they're walking their dog or at the gym or driving in the car. And that's absolutely right. Your podcast really, first and foremost, is an audio medium, and we want to use email like we use communities like Facebook groups or Slack channels or discourse groups as a way to continue the discussion and reach your audience in new and different ways to really relay different types of messages. So email marketing is the term that we'll use for connecting with your audience via email in between and around your regular podcast episodes. So first things first, to start an email marketing campaign, we have to have email subscribers on our list, and we have to be able to send them emails. Talking about kind of tools and gear here, email marketing tools like MailChimp are very popular. Here at Castos, we use a tool called Drip, which is a little more advanced tool that lets you do some marketing automation things. But you've probably heard of MailChimp or Aweber, Constant Contact, ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, or Drip. These are all really popular email marketing tools. Any and all of them will do the job that most of us need for our email marketing services for podcast. And I think certainly MailChimp is a place that most people start with when they start with email marketing. It's a really simple but powerful tool, which coming from someone that runs a software company is a very hard thing to achieve, which is powerful but simple for users to use. So if you haven't started down this road before, MailChimp is a great place to start. They have a free tier that lets you get started without any costs out of your pocket. So once you've got an email service provider picked out, such as MailChimp or Drip, you'll want to start collecting email addresses. And the best way to go about this is to create some sort of an incentive. In the internet marketing world, this is called a lead magnet. I think that's a terrible term, but we'll call it an incentive for someone to sign up for your email list. You giving your email on someone's website is really like the first step in a relationship that you're building with this brand. And most of us don't give that up lightly, right? We don't take that first step in a relationship very lightly. We have to have a reason or an incentive to give someone our email address. And usually that is the promise of them giving something in return that is of value to us. And so think about what that might be for you and your brand and your podcast and the message and the value that you're trying to relay. So I'll just give a few examples. Say for us at Castos, we might give kind of a crash course on how to get started podcasting. So we have a bunch of videos and email tutorials on how to get started in a podcast. If someone comes to our website and lands on certain blog posts, we might present them with this opt-in offer to say, hey, drop in your email here and we'll send you this 5 or 10-day course on how to get started in podcasting completely for free, right? We just need your email so we can send it to you, and is a great way for us to help people get started podcasting. In return, they've given us the privilege to contact them via email through this course, and then afterwards, in some cases with other offers or updates or announcements about podcasts like this that we might have. So we'll link to a couple of blog posts on our site and on other sites that go into much more detail about this kind of opt-in incentive and what that really means and how you might think about it for your site and your brand and your kind of messaging. but just start to think about like what is something that you can offer typically in a digital format, like a white paper or a report or a course or an email series or maybe hidden content. Maybe you've recorded a couple of podcast episodes that aren't live in your feed, but that you could give only to email subscribers. That's a really interesting idea. So these are just a few ideas of things that you can offer as incentives for people who come to your website to opt into your email list. They'll get that incentive, and then afterwards you can send them other email messages about, again, you and your brand and your messaging and what you're trying to achieve with your podcast and your kind of greater brand. So talking about tools for this opt-in, we use a service called writemessage.com on our site that is a little bit, I'll say, smarter in that it kind of keeps track of site visitors and things that they have done or shown interest in on our site to say like, hey, I know you mentioned last time that you're just getting started podcasting. Maybe the next time they come to our site, we'll show them something specific to a beginner podcaster, as opposed to someone else who comes to our site that says, hey, I really am, a professional podcaster already. I'm just interested in monetization. Maybe next time they come to our site, we'll show them a message about monetization. So Write Message is maybe a little bit smarter opt-in widget that you can use on your site, but things like sumo.com or Opt-in Monster are really great tools that do this. And a lot of email service providers like MailChimp or Drip have these widgets that you can put on your site that do a lot of this functionality natively. So in terms of tools, something like MailChimp might have you covered. If you want to get a little smarter, more sophisticated tool, something like Write Message may be a good tool to look at. The other thing that I really like when it comes to creating a compelling offer and incentive for people that listen to your podcast to subscribe to your email list is to have a dedicated place for them to go to. And so this is called a landing page in kind of online marketing parlance, but it really is just a dedicated page on your site that is its only purpose is for people to go to it and opt into your email list. So as opposed to having a little pop-up widget that comes up on every page, this is a single page on your site that's optimized and dedicated to offering this incentive to visitors, and in turn, them dropping in their email to get the thing, the incentive, the offer that you're proposing. And so using landing page tools like Unbounce or Lead Pages might be a good option here. If you're using a tool like WordPress or Squarespace, a lot of them have the ability to craft landing pages kind of natively built right into the tool. But just think that this is not a regular page like a blog post on your site. This is a page whose purpose is to convert visitors into email subscribers. So now that we have an email service provider picked out, a way to collect email addresses, and a place to collect those in a landing page, it's time to start thinking about how to get more people to that page. And this is where I think going outside of email is a really interesting approach. And what we like to do here, and what a lot of kind of modern savvy marketers do, is use social media, either organic social media, so you and your brand posting on their account, or using paid advertising on social media such as Facebook or Instagram to drive new people that maybe aren't aware of your brand to these pages to present them with this incentive offer to join your list. And so driving social media traffic, again, whether it's organic, you posting regular content from your accounts about your message and your offer and encouraging people to go to this landing page, or to use paid ads to reach new people that are outside of your audience. Either way, I think social media is an interesting way to kind of broaden that umbrella of your brand, either in social media, but ultimately to gain exposure and to gain email subscribers via these landing pages and opt-in widgets. And I think the thing to consider here is stick with where you are already connecting with your audience. So if your audience is all on Instagram, then go to Instagram and do organic and maybe do some paid posting on Instagram. If your show and your audience is more on the techie side, maybe Twitter is the place to go. And so just think about kind of where you already connect with your audience on social media and stick with that channel and that platform for either the organic or the paid postings. So once we've started getting new email subscribers, it's time to write some emails to those new subscribers to tell them about our podcast. And I think that a lot of time and care is needed here to create really good email content. A lot of us get a lot of emails every day, and a lot of them are terrible. And I think that this is the place to let your personality and your brand and your show's personality kind of come out and shine. So don't be afraid to be creative, write funny and snarky and different type of emails and have different kinds of language in your messages to your new subscribers. And the point with a lot of this is, if they're not already a subscriber to your podcast, to get them to become a subscriber. And to do that, you have to show what value your podcast has to them, right? All of us have a certain amount of time we can listen to podcasts. And so really, these emails are a chance for you to say, whether they've listened to a podcast or not, hey, this is what my podcast is about. This is who it's for. This is why you should listen. And this is what value you'll get from it. And so this is going to be different for everybody, but that's really the framework that I like to use for when we're creating emails. Think about what's in it for me is what you should be thinking about from your email recipient's perspective, to say, I want to write this email to tell them exactly what my show is about and why they should subscribe. And of course, in these emails, we want to link to the episode that is most relevant to our subscribers, or to kind of a landing page for our podcast as a whole that shows exactly kind of why people should listen, what the show is about, and how they can subscribe on the platform where they already listen to other podcasts. And then on an ongoing basis, I think email is a great way to let folks know about new content that you're putting out, maybe new events that you're going to have for your podcast or your brand, and just kind of new things that are going on in your world. And we'll link to a blog post that we wrote about how to effectively promote your podcast to your email list. And we have some examples of some great ways that folks have done this in our worlds that you can take some inspiration from and say, hey, yep, I'm going to take a little bit of this, I'm going to take a little bit of that, and I'm going to take a little bit of the other, and I'm going to create my own way to do it. But I think that this is a great way to kind of keep reinforcing your message and your brand and keeping your podcast top of mind to your subscribers is via email, letting them know about new episodes that are coming out. Because the reality, I think, is that we're busy, and a lot of us forget about certain things going on in our lives and our podcast lives. But if you get an email that really strikes a chord with you to say, hey, in this episode, we talked with Jack Resider from the Darknet Diaries, you may say, wow, I forgot. Not that anyone would do this, but wow, I forgot about the Audience podcast, but I have to listen to this episode with Jack or with the gals from the Ladybug podcast, right? And so seeing that email in your inbox might just kind of spark and bring back that kind of brand awareness for a podcast, for your subscribers and your email recipients. So it's just another way to stay in touch with your audience in a different way, in a different medium, but to bring them back to your podcast ultimately. And if your goal with your podcast is to do something different with your brand, maybe your podcast is for a conference that you run, or it's for a software company like Castos, or it's for your apparel brand or your e-commerce store, then using email to kind of bridge podcast listeners and people that come from your podcast and have subscribed to your email list to then kind of take them over into your business intent and your business goals. Say, hey, I know you listen to the podcast. This episode was really great because we talked about this thing. In this episode, we also referenced, this thing that my software tool can do, or this new line of clothing that we're releasing in our e-commerce store, or this new charity that we're supporting at our church. And so it's just a great way to kind of bridge those gaps for people that come to your brand kind of from different places and might have different intents originally, but you can share with them different things that you and your brand have going on and provide value to them and that they will be really interested in organically. So that's a bit about how we think about email marketing, both from starting an email list, capturing email addresses via some sort of an incentive or an opt-in offer, what to do with our new email subscribers in terms of sending them email messages, and then kind of how to tie all of that back into the greater brand or mission for your podcast and the overall kind of organization that your podcast serves. And so again, these are a little bit different for all of us, but hopefully that's a good overview of kind of how we think about using email for our podcast and our brand. And I hope that helps you implement some of these email marketing strategies for your show and your brand as well. Any questions, just shoot us a message. We're at Castos HQ on social media, or drop a comment in below for this episode. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.